Okay, this is Terry Allen, and we are doing a new podcast. This is on YouTube and Rumble, and it is February 12th, 2023. And I have it with I have a guest today, this evening. His name is Gerald Pechinuk, and he is one of the founding members of LaRouche PAC. And this is the anniversary of Lyndon LaRouche's passing of the fourth year now. And so maybe you could speak a little bit about LaRouche and also give some background on yourself. And that would be a big help for the audience.
Sure. Thanks, Terry.
Okay.
I think it's actually about 40 years ago, 1982, when you and I met in Chicago, or you were living up in Arlington Heights, if I
Yeah,
remember. And I think you were one of the first pioneers who joined the whole conception of the citizens candidates movement when you ran for the Arlington Heights School Board, District 214.
I remember it. And
You remember it, huh?
it didn't turn out very well because I was planning on maybe 20 people showing up, And when I got there, it was like 300 or 400 people. And had never spoken before a group like that. And I just basically froze.
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty embarrassing, really, the whole thing. But, you live and learn. So,
right. Well, this is the whole point. When Lyndon LaRouche ran for president, in terms of a background that you just asked for, he was never in the media. He was never given any kind of honest, fair coverage. And in a certain way, his main thrust of restoring the American system, a physical economy and creativity and classical education, which is, I remember what we were talking about, when you were running for the school board, huh? Because
yep.
they were already introducing, big time in the late 60s, early 70s, what we call wokeness today, but it was in the form of the sex, rock, drug counterculture, as opposed to, education that was basically around the idea of someone learning how to think creatively, not to regurgitate answers, or not to be a robot, not learning how to be a robot, but learning how to solve and be a discoverer, a thinker, a creative person, and
Exactly.
so what you did back in that campaign, 1982, and the fact that LaRouche was running for president and there were co-thinkers and associates and collaborators running for school board, running for Congress, running for precinct committeemen or whatever they were called, that actually gave the movement an impetus and actually led to Lyndon LaRouche working with President Ronald Reagan on a policy, which here we are 40 years later. And you probably recall when you were running, we were talking about nuclear fusion power.
That's how I met you guys. I was at the O'Hare Airport and I saw a table there that said Fusion Energy Foundation. And yeah, from electronics engineering college I had gone to, we had studied fusion and I was very interested in it. So I think it must be like 91, I'm sorry, 81, 82, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
40 years ago. So
it doesn't seem like that long ago, but
yeah, here we are, a little grayer than we were 40 years ago.
Definitely.
But, with here we are, and I'm in Oakland, California, just up the road about half an hour from where I am.
Yeah.
Is the Lawrence Livermore Labs, where for the first time, December 5th, I think it was, 2022, the National Ignition Facility, which is about a machine with 190 lasers focused on a pellet that was magnetically confined and achieved for the first time ever a reaction that created more energy than was put in when it came out. In other words, we're on the verge of what you and I campaigned for 40 years ago, the impossible. Now the impossible has happened. And we have, for the first time, a self-sustaining, greater than break-even fusion reaction. Now, Lawrence Livermore is a facility that is run by the military defense for testing military. It's not a civilian type place, but the application of this, if we do what we said and you said running for office should be done 40 years ago, we'd have a crash program for the development of civilian fusion energy reactors. And if we did it the same way John F. Kennedy, who most of us grew up supporting John F. Kennedy because of the excitement of the space program. That's what kept us away from being juvenile delinquents. You know, exactly. we had a positive image for the future, you know, that if we could put a man on the moon, and Kennedy said in 1961 or 2, I think it was at Rice University in Texas, where you are, he said, we're going to put a man on the moon in a decade and bring him back safely.
Yeah, not because it's easy, but because it's hard.
Because it's hard. All right. So that was resounding and reverberating in the mind of every child growing up at that time. Huh?
Yeah, I remember watching the landing. It was late at night, I remember. And yeah, we were all gathered around the TV watching it. And I saw him jump down on the surface. That was really something.
Yeah. So here we are. So on one hand, Lyndon LaRouche, you know, who passed away 4 years ago today, actually realized that if the globalists, if the Trilateral Commission, that was the front end of it back then, the Council on Foreign Relations, now you got the World Economic Forum, you know, you got various Malthusian organizations who say man is a cancer, we got to depopulate, we got to, you know, and they've gone from different, you know, sort of front groups. At one time, this depopulation movement was called Eugenics. And the Bushies, the same Bushy family we're dealing with today, they were with Averell Harriman. That was the deep state. Harriman was the Democrat, Bushy was the Republican. They were partners in the Brown Brothers Harriman Wall Street, you know, like a hedge fund investment bank type thing. And they supported Hitler.
Yeah, that was Prescott Bush. That was W's grandfather, right?
That's great. George, the grandfather. Yeah, exactly. Now, what happened is Hitler gave eugenics a bad name. So in the period at the end of World War II, they just changed eugenics to environmentalism. That was the name given so that people wouldn't jump up and down against it. And the whole idea was to start saying that human beings, because of science and technology and industry and manufacturing, infrastructure, this was bad because it was hurting the environment. And so, of course, they forgot to tell you that human beings are like a critical, crucial part of the environment. So they just kind of left that out. And, you know, we could go through it at some point later, the many different ways. First, it was global cooling. Then it was the hole in the ozone. And then it was the global warming. Now it's climate change. You know, the changing the name to protect the guilty in this case from eugenics, environmentalism, global warming, global cooling, climate change, you know, is the handmark of these globalist trilateralists and what LaRouche pushed for in terms of a movement of citizens who would take responsibility for governing, which is what, when you run for office, when you run for school board, when you run for Congress, you're saying, I'm a citizen of a republic. I'm not a little person. I'm
Right.
I have to know everything. I have to act like I'm president, like I know what has to be done. I'm not just going to sit here and throw my shoe at the TV and curse my wife and scream at my kids, but I'm going to do something, to change the situation. And that's what our movement, LaRouche PAC, has done. And just to bring it up to date, one of the people that we collaborated with when LaRouche ran in 1980 for president was President Reagan and his advisor, Roger Stone.
Hmm.
The same Roger Stone who was the main driving force behind convincing Donald Trump to run for president.
Wow,
So,
interesting.
yeah.
I didn't
So,
realize he went back that far. He must have been pretty young at the time then.
yeah. He was living in Connecticut. That's where he was from, and he was offered the job as a coordinator for Reagan's campaign to be in charge of New York State.
Mhm.
And like Roger Stone was in the college Republicans. He was always, very political as young person. So they offered him the job in New York from Connecticut to go to New York. And one of the people he had to meet with was Fred Trump, who was Donald Trump's father, who was
Oh, yeah.
a builder in New York. And that's how he met Donald Trump in
Interesting.
that period of 1980, the same time that he met LaRouche. So the idea that Trump could win an election, could get attacked with the Russia media hoax, globalist hoax, deep state hoax. That's exactly the same set of people that did that against us, LaRouche PAC, when right then, after you were running in 82, and we had this citizens candidates movement, we actually started winning elections. And that
Yeah.
in this point, it was in the Democratic primaries. Best case was Illinois 1986, where we won the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, congressional nominations, and other office. And so the attack against us to shut LaRouche up and the
Mhm.
attack against Trump to shut Trump up, there's interesting parallels which we can explore to get people to see how this deep state works.
Yeah,
And
we got up against the media even back then. Remember, everything was neo-Nazi Lyndon LaRouche, extremist Lyndon LaRouche. He had these pronouns back then, and even when I ran in school board, the we had an interview and all that stuff with the news, and then the article came out. Neo-Nazi Terry Allen. What? I couldn't believe it. I mean, where in the hell did they get that? And the guy said, well, I just read it off of something from the AP Wire. And it's like,
right.
wow.
In fact, if I remember correctly, Terry, the NBC TV reporter kind of ambushed you on
Yeah.
your, it just sort of showed up and, stuck the microphone in front of you, you know. So NBC, we used to call it nothing but cocaine, TV network.
Yeah.
Uh, they, they, they were, part and parcel of saying, take some LSD, it'll make your mind expand, all right. You know,
Yeah.
so this is the fight LaRouche PAC, Lyndon LaRouche, has been in for a long time. To crush the deep state, to crush the globalists, to crush the destruction of creativity among the citizens, because we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people. I mean, the other thing we should say is today is Abraham Lincoln's birthday.
Interesting.
You know,
I realize that. And you mean LaRouche died on Abraham Lincoln's birthday?
that's exactly what happened.
Wow,
You
interesting.
know, so so as a movement, and we can give people updates, daily, because we have our own. We've always been independent in terms of a news service, in terms of not accepting the media narratives, as they're called today.
Exactly.
And so that's what I think, Terry, you and I can do with the help of others, is give people insights and give them a sense that the people say, well, I'm only one person.
Yeah.
What can I do? Guess what?
Exactly.
Abraham Lincoln was one person. Lyndon
Yeah.
LaRouche was one person. The singular person who takes responsibility makes all the difference in changing the course of history. And that's what we got to do now before these globalists blow us up with their insane war in Ukraine that they provoked with the overthrow of the Yanukovych government. The elected government of Ukraine was overthrown in a coup run by the British, Christopher Steele, and some of these other Wall Street and State Department flunkies that worked with the British for
Hmm.
this, preventing any kind of sovereign nation state collaboration. And Trump, whatever you might say about him, he said, I want good relations with Russia, China. That's a good thing. North Korea, it's a good thing. And
Yeah.
did not start one war during the time he was president. Not one war
Right.
started. So again, there's a situation where the old line, Kennedy, FDR, what we might call traditional Democrats, you
Hmm.
know, really with the Democratic Party, and we can explore more of this because I did meet Barack Obama a couple of times while I was in Chicago in the Midwest prior to moving out here to California. So we can give people who still fall for the rope-a-dope, a Barack Obama who claimed he was like Martin Luther King. I have a dream, only he spelled it. I have a drone. He started 7 different wars, and I can remember when they were trying. The University of Chicago flunkies were trying to portray Obama as a anti-war person. Obama made a speech in downtown Chicago at Federal Plaza saying he was for smart wars. He wasn't against all wars. He was just against all wars where people got upset and wanted to change it. So he was going to figure out a way to have smart wars where
Yeah.
the drones do the killing so people don't get upset. They don't
Yeah.
even know what's going on
Keep the
because,
American casualties down, then, hey, let's just do it. Nobody really knows what's going on over there. So, yeah, Obama had made a lot of promises, just like everybody else, just like Biden made a lot of promises, and they haven't kept any of them. I mean, it's ridiculous.
yeah, yeah.
Biden's
And
worse, actually.
yeah. So I think what we're trying to do here is the people who are supporting Trump, who are, quote, Republicans, quote unquote, but not all the warmongering Republicans, they're ganging up against Trump right
Yeah.
now. And we have the people who you might say were the traditional Democrats who are anti-war, who are, pro-human being. Huh?
Yeah.
So we can actually form a a movement that is outside the structures of the Republican Party or
Right.
Democratic Party, but is uniting as a movement, as an informed movement, as a creative movement that can intervene into the millions of people now, millions and millions. Unlike 1980,
Yeah.
there's 70 million, 80 million, 100 million people now who know about the deep state, who
Yeah.
saw what happened to Kennedy, who saw what happened on 9/11. the truth never has been told on that, the inside job of 9/11. Huh?
Yeah, I think social media has actually done a lot, the independent media, because when we had to rely on, corporate news, we would have never gotten to this point, I think. And that was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was the recent events with Elon Musk and Twitter. And because it seems on one hand, it seems really good, and we look like maybe we're going to have a big breakthrough. And then on the other hand, we got to wonder, is anything really ever going to happen out of it? Because we've gotten to the verge of something like the Epstein case, and all of a sudden it gets swept under the rug and everybody forgets about it. So the other question I have is, they're throwing the Democratic Party, essentially the Democratic Party and FBI under the bus because, and I would have thought, well, they could have just, bombed the Twitter building or something to keep all these emails from getting out. So nobody did that. So something's happening behind the scenes. I don't know what you think about that. It just seems to me that's not so cut and dried as, Elon Musk just being a First Amendment advocate.
Well, I think there's two things. And, when people, like when you're in school and you got a test coming up, the whole thing was, let's go to the back of the book and, get the answers.
Yeah.
And I think in this case, Terry, how's it all going to end up? Is it going to be covered up? Is something going to be done? That question is, you can't answer it. You can't make a prediction or a forecast on it. It's a fight. And
yeah, we all have to fight to make it happen. Right. I've been calling congressmen and senators and just giving, particularly like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and some of these that I would have never dreamed that I would be talking to Republicans. But there's nobody else. I mean, the Democrats are all trying to cover this thing up constantly. So that now it looks like it's the Republicans that are going to pull this off, if anybody will. And so we have to give them our support. I mean, you can't just say, well, it has to be Democrats or nothing. You got to just back the candidate that has the right ideology, not what party they're in.
Well, let me just say this. I think the biggest thing we have going is an informed citizenry. And I would urge everyone who thinks along the lines that you do to start considering right now. Today is February 12th, Lincoln's birthday, 4th anniversary of the passing away of Lyndon LaRouche. To think right now of what office, what, involvement you want to have as an individual to make a change in the course of history.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. As far as the party, it could be what you just threw out about the, FBI and these others, dumping to destroy the Democrats. They could be trying to put in a rhino Republican, you know what I mean? Like bait and switch. You don't like the Democrats. Well, we got these other Republicans over here that aren't like, crazy like Trump, ain't conspirophiles like Trump. They're more like, Mike Pence, goody two shoes, who, might be out spitting watermelon seeds at the state fair. They're, really like.
Or Liz Cheney, the great upholder of the rule of law. I mean,
right.
God.
So on the one hand, they'll be attacking the Democrats, but on the other hand, they're doing the same thing to isolate, call the Republicans insurrectionists and blah, blah, blah. So really, like I said, there's no clear-cut answer at this point in time as to which way we'll go. But we actually have to give Elon Musk some credit here, because what's come out in the Twitter files, like on Hunter Biden, and that whole situation, which if that had come out during the election period, October 2020, I think history would have been a little different about the 2020 November election. Huh?
Yeah, I
Also,
think that's why they had to cover it up or silence it, because they pretty much knew that that would destroy Biden. And they did everything. And that the Twitter files prove it right there. All the evidence is right there. They tried to suppress it.
yeah, yeah. And the Twitter files prove what we've said all along, that the media, the intelligence agencies, the military industrial complex, it's all a sham, a flam, and a scam.
Yeah.
And it's time for all of us, and I mean all of us, I mean you, I mean Terry, I mean me, myself,
Yeah.
will be, can talk more about it, but we're delegates to the Republican State Convention, which is coming up in Sacramento. There's
Mhm.
going to be obviously conventions in Texas that Terry and others can participate in.
Yeah.
And LaRouche PAC is taking a leading role because of this history that we have, because of the experiences that Terry and I went through firsthand. We don't
Yeah.
have to we don't have to go look it up somewhere and say, "Oh, I read on the internet such a." We lived it. We went through this, right? So we
Yeah.
speak from firsthand experience, and we want to share this with everyone, out there, so that you can, not have to go through the lumps and bumps, you know, and
Exactly.
and stuff we went through, because we have a very bright future with fusion power. We have a very bright future with the revitalization of the Artemis space program that
Yeah.
Donald Trump put in, just like John F. Kennedy, whereas
Mhm.
Obama had shut down the Constellation program, which was supposed to get us back to the moon, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So there it is, the Malthusians, the globalists, whether they're Democrats or Republicans, Bushes or Obamas, and the pro-growth American system, whether it's LaRouche, Trump, or maybe some others whose names we don't even know, who
Yeah.
can emerge from this situation. But Donald Trump right now has stood the test of time, and consistently attacked the deep state, and they hate his guts. The British Royal the House of Lords put out a study in 2018. They were not going to allow Trump to have a second term, period, no matter what.
Yeah.
So this is a fight, and maybe we can bring this particular discussion to a wrap up with
Yeah.
any thoughts you have, Terry, and we'll try to get updates. The update on the deep state today.
Yeah.
Citizens, do you know where your deep state criminals are today? You know, so that's what I would propose, Terry, and
Yeah.
and hope we can get this collaboration going, and make a lot of people happy that they can
Definitely.
do something.
Yeah, it's interesting that I've heard the term Malthusian, which I knew about in the 80s, who that was and what they stood for. And people are starting to use they know who Thomas Malthus is now, which is a very interesting thing that I noticed. And the other question I had, I saw Nick Brana do an interview with Jimmy Dore, and something he said was that they were doing a rally somewhere, and he said, "Thank God for the LaRouche PAC." And you know who Nick Brana is with the People's Party. That's the group of Bernie Sanders supporters and part of his campaign, personnel. And they were completely, disenfranchised. They were, just destroyed morally because of what happened with Bernie Sanders just falling over to his knees. So
Yeah, I think we're going to see new alliances. We're going to see new cooperations, new um, things happen that
yeah,
have never happened before, and we certainly, again, encourage everyone to be part of that, and especially I think the other thing we can explore in future days and weeks is the fact that the financial system has actually never recovered from the crash of 2007, 2008.
No, definitely not.
Been nothing but bailouts from the Federal Reserve of the what they call the globally significant banks. It's about 25 of them. Plus now you have this whole collapse of the cryptocurrencies. Sam the sham Bankman fraud,
Oh my God, yeah.
so there's a lot of meaty material Lyndon LaRouche put out on this kind of stuff, and LaRouche
Yeah.
PAC is following, so we can explore that.
Yeah, we've got a lot of subjects that we can cover, everything. But yeah, we're gonna have to wrap it up because I got a notice here that my that Zoom is getting ready to shut down soon.
Zoom is going soon, so
yeah, I know, but it was great. Pleasure speaking with you again, Gerald.
And I just would say one last thing, Terry. We're going to have Brian Lance, who's the author of a new study on how to take the aerospace defense war machine industries and convert them over to productive manufacturing and necessary things, to revive the industrial capabilities of the United States.
Exactly. Yeah, we're going to have an interview with him next weekend.
Okay, great. And that the material from Brian would be very important for people to study because
yeah, we'll post a link to that.
Okay, great. All right. So I'll say sayonara for now, and
okay.
Thanks a lot for jumping in, Terry.
Yeah, good seeing you again. All right.
I mean, for every 40 years or so, we get together. All right.
Gerald, take care then. Have a good night.
Good night to you too and everyone.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, well, that's about it for tonight. That was an old friend of mine, Gerald Pechinuk, that I've known for many, many years. So we're going to start doing a periodic, maybe a couple times a week. We're going to do a, interviews and try to get more information out that the public needs about what's going on. All right, so have a good night and take care and peace.